but I will interject as appropriate. So again, welcome, Patrick and Steve. I'm going to pass it to you guys to start and share your story. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. My name is Steve Scher, Manager of Planning and Zoning. With me is Patrick Schloss, the Economic Development Executive Director, West Allis. It's West Allis Wednesday. Welcome, everybody. And so today we've got a little story of West Allis. We're going to go over some economic development tools that we've used and that we continue to use and in our toolbox, as well as our comprehensive plan, which we've been also using to leverage redevelopment efforts throughout the city. West Allis is a fully developed city within the Milwaukee County, Milwaukee region, Milwaukee metro region, about 11.4 square miles, 10 miles to Mitchell Field, right next door to Milwaukee and the AmFam Field, the Brewers. What we're known for, farmers markets, Wisconsin State Fairs, storied past with Milwaukee Mile and State Fair. Packers played there in the 1939 championship game and beat the Giants. The Mile and Allis Chalmers has also been quite a bit of history with that in terms of building in our industrial past. Back in 1906, the city's focus was on heavy industry, and the city sort of grew up around that. But our location has always been key to our future and to our success. So one of the big events that took place, a crisis that took place in the mid-'80s, was that Allis Chalmers, the namesake that the city was named after, big industry, tens of thousands of people worked there. We lost 8,500 jobs, and the company ended up folding later that decade, closer to 1990. It resulted in a big loss of, obviously, wages to the employment sector, but also it shifted the tax burden from industrial to residential and elsewhere. So what we're here to talk about, though, today is looking forward a little bit more and the new exciting things that we've got going on in the city. These are the Schneider twins, local West Allis pro bike racers who won a couple of races at our local Tour of America's Dairyland earlier this year in June.
The big thing to note is the change that we're seeing. Often it comes from the residents and the people within our community. And as we go through our presentation today, we're going to talk about engagement and how we've are building those relationships with the people within our neighborhoods, as well as attracting those outside of our neighborhoods.
West Allis today is also, we're trying to become much more bike friendly. We want to put ourselves on the map, so to speak, as a place that's connected and walkable, bikeable. So it's a big push. We joined as community members with the Bike Fed, and that's, I think, going to open up some doors for us to, again, become better connected, tap into some of their planning services, and then sort of create the next connection, whether it's to the city of Milwaukee via maybe the Power Line Trail through, a connection there, or our connection right now within the city is our Oak Leaf Trail, and we also bought the Hank Aaron State Trail to the north.
So this is a demographic report about our community. I mean, this is within a 10-minute drive of our downtown. And when we look at our demographics as a community, we see that our race and ethnicity populations have evolved in recent years. We've seen a double of the Hispanic population. We do not have the highest education levels within the city in terms of advanced degrees, but we still maintain a good home ownership. And we somewhat have a lower median household income compared to some suburban communities around our city. However, with the density and connections with transportation, we notice that we are still a strong employment base, and we have that those connections to the suburban areas. People find areas in our city that are destinations.
Some of our strongest assets in the city too are the fact that we are fully developed. We do have public transportation. We have a bike share system where we're on a grid, so it's very well connected. We have sidewalks and traditional neighborhood types of development. In this case, on the right is the Kegel's Inn, a German restaurant on 59th and National. And then to the right is the former public table, which is now Valentine Coffee. But taking a look at that section of street, that 59th Street, what can we do differently with that? We actually worked with Kegel's the two business owners on either side of 59th Street. And they were very active in wanting to do beer gardens and different events within that street, closing down the street routinely. We ended up just vacating the street, and now Kegel's more or less owns that, and they're doing events much more often. Obviously, they've got a more permanent beer garden that both Valentine Coffee as well as Kegel's benefit from. So sort of taking what you have and making something new with it. The same situation in downtown West Allis. This is just north of Greenfield Avenue on a portion of 72nd Street. And there's a major event space that just opened up, the Deco on the left. And then the right is just an office building. But it's sort of taking a look at what's always been there and maybe putting a little twist on it. And in this case, we created a downtown pedestrian plaza that was created by ordinance. And then from there, our economic development team actually applied for and received a WEDC, a Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant for just under $30,000, which helped sort of enliven the space a little bit more. We're looking at the future of this space, potentially if it goes well, and if it's well received within our downtown business improvement district, continuing this on a seasonal basis, but it could also then become much more of a permanent space where it's more curbed off and landscaped and so on. So we're keeping an eye on that.
The big thing with this is with planning and economic development is to create sticky places. And I use the word sticky, and you're going to see a little bit of that through our process. It helps people stay in an area longer, want them to maybe live there or explore the area further besides just running into one place and walking out with their whatever they need. Creating places where people want to hang out and maybe bring new people into our city is really a goal of our common council.
So with neighborhoods, if you've been down Beecher Street, I think we're going to rename it Lutz Lane. Mark Lutz in the lower left is and the brain behind all that. And he's purchased different real estate in the area. He's got a butcher shop, a tavern with outdoor patios. We've got restaurants. We just opened a smash burger restaurant and scratch ice cream. There's a bakery across the street. So there's a lot going on Beecher Street, but it's not just so much about Beecher Street, but it's also about our neighborhoods and the people that live in that area. And we're trying to create more neighborhood associations. So we think of comp planning, we think of big, massive projects and redevelopment quite often, right? But I mean, it's also about sort of smaller scale neighborhoods and what we can do with the grassroots, with engaging our citizenry. Whether it's at the local farmers market or in where they live in their neighborhoods. And we've got about 7 or so different neighborhood associations right now. We're trying to grow that. We offer focus grants, which are small grants, not only to organize your neighborhood association and meet and come up with ideas, but then to also do a project. And you can get, the city will actually on a reimbursement basis offer up to $2,000. Or in this case, they're building little libraries. They sprinkled around, their neighborhood. In other cases, we did sidewalk chalk. I mean, that was much smaller scale thing, but the East Allis Neighborhood Association did a butterfly garden and neighborhood entry signage in a city median. And then also in Liberty Heights Park, about 62nd and Orchard Street, an ice skating rink was put in. And that ice skating rink actually started out over at Kegel's restaurant on 59th and National. Unfortunately, they were having a rough winter that year. Things they would freeze, it would melt the next day, and there were some pitch issues. So Kegel's actually just donated the skate rink to the Liberty Heights Neighborhood Association, and it ended up over at Liberty Heights Park, and they have skating nights. And they're actually talking about doing, with some of their projects, doing a synthetic skating rink for a more year-round type of use. But so small little things turn into bigger ideas, and it just sort of catalyzes and grows and improves as time goes on.
I just wanted to note, this is from I believe last year, and you see this Lake Effect Coffee Company, and they started out as a small coffee vendor. I'm going to highlight that a little bit later, but it starts with the small, like Sean or Steve mentioned, and working towards bigger things and building relationships, and that really was a key point in our transition of looking at Burnham Point. Trying to come up with a different, this is 60th and Burnham. It's an older commercial corridor area that we're trying to strengthen and improve and working with the neighborhood and businesses. And we've tried a couple different transportational connections and improvements in this area, including looking at an empty gravel lot and working with the neighborhood to put in an actual a playground within that area, as well as a little band shelter, and then try to program that area just to create some more activity and work to create a destination out of this neighborhood. It is a neighborhood that we need to attract more businesses to, and work with landlords on facade grants and other economic development tools. But this is a target area that we continually work to improve. We also are big in celebrating art, and the art. This is from wrapping utility boxes to murals within our city. We used something from our New Market Tax Credit Group, a grant from them, outside grants as well, to fund an artscape program, and we call it Living Streets. You can see some of the murals that were awarded and utility box projects, and we did a call for local artists to come and submit their concepts. You can see here an artist standing with her work of art that we put on 60th and Burnham area. Here are a few more of those pieces of work that we've worked recently on. Economic and development is a joint partnership with planning. A lot of the new businesses and new developments we see in our city are a result of us working closely together and working to take what was always there, maybe an old industrial site, a brownfield site, and working to bring new vision to those areas, whether it's a commercial corridor or old industrial corridor. We have used TIF as the main economic development tool to create some new housing in our city. And this new housing has opened the door, I should say, to attracting new businesses and new eateries and places within our city. These new apartment buildings that we just showed have led to industrial companies expanding in our city. Chris Hansen is expanding currently with a 40,000 square foot extension on their corporate headquarters. And 1 billion people a day are influenced by a product from Chris Hansen. They make enzymes that start cheese and yogurts. And they are within a neighborhood in our city, and many people don't even know that they're here. And they've made a $25 million expansion recently, and now they're doing I think it's another 40 million. They have the coldest freezer in North America in West Allis. So when we talk about the evolution of industry in our city, it's gone to more advanced standards in a way. This is blast cleaning technologies. We attracted them to our city in 2018. They had 80 employees. Today, they're over 200 employees. And the company reached out to us and asked, hey, we have to add another division. And it's advanced foundry. And most communities hear foundry, etc., but it's a clean foundry. And to me, that's very advanced. They have filters on the air systems that they have, and you would never even know that there's a foundry within this 75,000 square foot building that they purchased. And we helped them with this expansion with new market tax credits, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. But to go from 80 employees to over 200 today, and another 25 to 30 coming with the advanced foundry, it's reshoring. They're bringing work from China and other areas because they want to be able to control the parts that they need for their machinery. During COVID, we actually saw new businesses open, and it's these new eateries, etc., that have really drawn the attention of the real estate community within our city. We've seen new fitness businesses open, a series of businesses that say that they strongly agree with West Allis being an excellent place to do business. We do an annual business survey, and this is an example of the results of that survey, showing that they strongly agree that we're a great place to do business. And making ourselves available and making relationships to new business owners and entrepreneurs. These are two teachers that reached out during COVID, and we did a Teams call just like this Zoom here today, and actually attract them to our city through Zoom. And building those relationships is key for economic development. And they're teachers, like I mentioned. They have been in business for a year, and they've actually almost outgrown their space.
So as Patrick's been illustrating, some of the primary reasons business owners want to keep their businesses or relocate in West Allis are, the location, the access itself, just given our proximity to I-94, under about 3/4 of a mile away from, basically downtown West Allis or Greenfield Avenue. And so it's easy on, easy off. And the population characteristics, demographics is changing. It's one of our strengths that we're embracing, and that we're going to see really spur the next generation of growth in the city. Our reputation and branding efforts, I think, have been key as well. City administrator and mayor, along with our communications department, really a collective of a team, really put together a nice branding effort, working with a local PR company, advertising company. And I think back in 2016 or so, that really helped, I think, spur quite a bit of buzz, branding things, doing little vignettes of different businesses, which are attached on our website, and really pushing those out in different news flashes and media outlets. I think has really helped put West Allis a little bit more on the map. So we hope to continue to see that evolve. So in city services, we want to pride ourselves on being an ally with our business partners, as Patrick's mentioned, our neighborhoods. We really see them as the key players or shareholders, and we just I guess not to say get out of the way, but we want to be partners with them in their goals and vision for the city, and make sure that's all incorporated within our strategic plan and comprehensive planning and economic development tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. So safety is another key thing. Our police and fire are very helpful. Department of Public Works also key. So these are just things that I think that sort of we picked up on from different surveys and engagements, different parts of the city that have helped West Allis become a little bit more brand identity.
Just before we leave this slide, I just want to comment, and I think Steve touched on it, is that rebranding process. I mean, Steve and I have been here over 20 years each in the city of West Allis, and to see number 3 community reputation is something that over time, 10 years, 20 years ago, would not have scored that high in terms of the survey. So the efforts that our city has put forward, our leadership in terms of working to build relationships with businesses in the community and residents in the community, in the rebranding process of being focused on the branding process was essentially focused on business, small businesses opening, making our reputation as a place to open and being business friendly. So, and that is emphasized today. I brought up Lake Effect Coffee before. You can see that this business started as a small little bicycle chilled coffee type of business. They've actually leased space within the Epicos Church on the corner of Greenfield Avenue and National Avenue around 62nd Street. And to see a resident, again, expand in West Allis and take their business from a bike to bricks and mortar, we couldn't be more excited to see that happen here. And then Twisted Plants is, this is a business that has 2 locations, I think on Brady and then one in Cudahy. And a brother-in-law connected with us about a vacant space that's been in our city, a property that was going into foreclosure. And a food business trying to get a loan today is very difficult, especially an entrepreneur that is putting all their resources back into a business. So we partner with the Hmong Chamber of Commerce to help provide financing. So we often try to be a resource to connect entrepreneurs with other programs or groups in the community to help bring financing to a deal. We went to multiple banks that all have said no, just because of the food enterprise. And to see a business that has almost $1 million in sales go get no from a bank to yes from different groups, that's book volumes. At Valentine Coffee, they opened on National Avenue, like Steve mentioned before. Again, it's just a series of new businesses that are finding opportunity in our city. Besides, I think Carolyn mentioned about we have a lot of different projects going on, and this kind of shows the legacy of our city. And this is around 68th and National Avenue, the old Kearney and Treckard area, as well as an old foundry, kind of a really cool area from a time in the past here. But this building right here, I think you can see my mouse, is still standing today. And you might have seen a recent headline about an adaptive reuse. We've actually saved this building from the wrecking ball. It has a really cool interior, and that we're looking to convert into an event space as well as office. Utilizing historical tax credits and utilizing new market tax credits.
And I would just want to compliment Patrick on this. I mean, I think it was your idea, Patrick, to sort of, you looked at this building and it used to be covered with this white sheet metal. And it's like, why don't we just take that sheet metal off and see what's underneath? I mean, you had already been inside the building, so you saw the value from the inside out. But I think taking that sheet metal off this building really did help sort of advance it towards, now we're actually thinking about adaptive reuse. Prior, it was kind of like just a pass by, forgettable thing. Good job.
So this project, here's the capital stack for it. It's around a $16 million project, and we're using. I'm sure this is all very legible to all of you with the small numbers on the screen, but just the recap here: historical tax credits, both federal and state, PACE financing, and then we're going to use some new market tax credit funding for this project. And I'll talk about new market tax credits here momentarily. The TIF financing aspect was used to acquire the site a number of years ago. We've gone through COVID with this property. We've done an RFP on the property. And before COVID, this developer was working with us. Then COVID happened. The developer's Balm Revision, they actually did Garver Feed Mill in Madison. So they have experience in renovating properties in kind of a blighted condition. And using all the alternative financing programs to make a renovation happen. I see Carolyn pop up.
Yep, Patrick, there's just a question how much the city paid for it. I guess I'm going to add to that. How difficult was that to get approval from electeds and city folks to say, yes, we support this?
So we bought the property with it was an old manufacturing complex. So there's multiple parcels that were assembled, and this one I believe we spent $100,000 to acquire the property, and we just sat on it for a little while, just trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we acquired the property adjacent, which actually became Oak Brewery, and we actually looked at housing for the space, and we thought it just didn't fit the building because essentially we're building a building within a building in order to preserve. The big thing are the windows, as we kind of, if you see here, all these windows have to be replaced to meet today's terms. Council has been patient. I have to say that our council has been patient. They are at the point right now to get this deal done, but it took almost 10 months for us to negotiate with the National Park Service on if this property was actually eligible. So we worked with the developer to get this actually on the ability to get it, the federal tax credits to make this project happen. So we've gone down that process, got the approvals, and now we're into the stage of getting everything inked and ready to go. So the council is ready to see this happen. They are excited to see a project that can bring 50,000 visitors a year, if not more. I mean, it'll have a wedding space. I guess I didn't put the floor plan in here, but wedding space, offices for an event planning company, and then have an outdoor patio, etc. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the perspective. And I think this is one of those game changer projects. You just need to be patient while you go through it, which it sounds like you did, to make sure that vision is accurate and fits. And Dan, I've held some meetings in the Garver project in Madison. It's totally worth the wait because it's pretty spectacular when it's done. Yeah. So congrats. Thanks.
I just want our planning team and our economic development team. There's a front and back to this screen that you see here. I don't have the backside, but we listed the timeline of the whole series of events to get to where we're at today. And the idea here was to give information to the council that they would have at their fingertips, like a dashboard. And that proved to be very helpful. Otherwise, they're looking for numbers. They're calling all the time. And this seemed to be exactly what they were looking for. I wanted to show that the capital stack, but fire. The city has a regional CDE that covers Milwaukee, Racine, and Kenosha counties for the investment of new market tax credits. We've invested over $300 million in tax credits to date. Just real quickly, the tax credits come from the U.S. Treasury. They are passed to a CDE like us, which is fire. I'm the vice president of fire. We sell those tax credits. The cash comes back to us, and we invest those in deals. And the new market tax credit period is 7 years. We could have a whole lunch hour discussion on new market tax credits here, but this is just a quick, simple imagery of what how that program works. So when we say 10 million in new market tax credits, you can kind of see what this actually relates to in cash. 10 million is almost like 2.1 million, and that's put into a deal as an interest-only loan. over 7 years. And a majority of those funds are waived at the 7th year.
Sign Dan up. He wants to join the next new market talk. So we were just talking about the Kearney and Trecker building there, and then just to the west or to the east, stone's throw away is the new construction, actually completed construction of the lofts, and then east of that is Makers Row, which is a little bit more of a commercial type of development. This is a view from the top of the south of National or Sona Lofts building, the 110 units, in-ground pool, some surface parking, but there's also underground parking. Mandel Group has been great to work with. In fact, aligning with them and their architects throughout the process, has been key. They're great to work with. Just another bird's eye perspective looking to the north, with the Sona Lofts on your left, just to the above that pond. So remnant industrial building there, it's occupied. It's Higgins Tower Service, and then to the north of that is the West Living, which is the phase 1. It's sort of one of the first projects that sort of kicked off. And the farmers market, over here on the right side of 66th Street or 6 Points Crossing. So
Steve, so if you see the question, there's a question about the amount of TIF assistance that's provided to these projects, and I guess I'd like your explanation on how that's determined and the amount.
I'll let Patrick answer that one. He's been much more in tune with the TIF reporting.
So we meet with the developer and we go over their pro forma and we look at their average returns. And we work with an outside financial consultant as well, looking at how the deals are structured and what their returns are. If they're making a 20% return, we want to share in the upside. Usually developers are like a 15% IRR, internal rate of return, maybe a 7% cash on cash. And we match those up against national trends. And we look at cap rates, interest rates, how much equity they're putting in. And that's how we structure it. I mean, it pretty much comes down to that kind of model to figure out how to balance the TIF. Our community is PAYGO. That means a developer funded TIF. So they have to find financing to make up that increment stream as a loan. So we'll provide the increment if they can go out and take a loan. Rarely do we want to provide upfront money to a developer these days. We're more of the developer takes the risk and we'll pay for them to take on that risk. So that's how we kind of structure those. Usually we have clauses in our development agreements about construction savings. So if they have construction savings like they did on the West, that developer will actually write us a percentage of those savings as a check to the city. So we have that in the development agreement, as well as often a clawback provision. If they're wildly successful and they hit those benchmarks at a capital event of some sort, refinancing or sale, we can share in those upsides of those funds, and that comes back to the TIF as well.
This is another, I guess, a prospect on the horizon, a 50 unit multifamily, also by Mandel, just south of the Sona Lofts building and Makers Row, and just north of Mitchell Street. It's unique design. It's also, I guess it's the next phase on the horizon for that block we've been talking about around the farmers market.
Nobody has seen this yet, so we're kind of showing you something new.
Yeah. Our National Avenue Corridor plan has been extremely helpful. This was developed back in probably about 2017 or so. It took on a large chunk of National Avenue, basically from the roughly 60th Street west to about 95th Street. It's a spine that runs through the city. It's a very important road, but we were, I guess, trying to understand the dynamic of it. It seemed to be over years and years to be sort of just a pass-through corridor. We wanted to get, as Patrick mentioned, some more sticky businesses involved, and we've got a lot of nice infrastructure, traditional neighborhood types of buildings along the way, as well as some older industrial buildings that are, could be adapted and reused. And I think Patrick's going to talk about Hope in this case, 67th and National.
Steve talked about the National Avenue Corridor Plan, which incorporated planning principles of complete streets and bike lanes and benches, making nice amenities within the area, and some stretches of the area that have been resurfaced and reconstructed. but it also included in the plan attracting sticky businesses, as we've been talking about. And this is Brewery. This is that came from the brokerage community. So in terms of anything to take away today, having a relationship with the brokerage community is very helpful. They were exploring sites in multiple communities and came to us, and we worked with them from the business plan all the way to attracting financing. We went to 33 different banks. This is just coming out of COVID, and now they've been in business for a year, almost a little bit, a year and a quarter, and they are hitting their benchmarks and then some as a brewery. So this created one of those destination places that we wanted in the National Avenue corridor as well. This leads then to, from the new housing that you've seen in the 6 Points area, to new proposals. This is from Three Leaf, and this one's all approved and ready to probably break ground this fall. It's 247 units of market rate housing. It's around a $48 million tax, $67 million development that we're seeing within our city. So again, we believe in density, and we're seeing success in all the apartment buildings to date. We have like a 0.6 vacancy rate on all the new apartment buildings. So we thought this fit in the corridor study well. Tear down older. I should have had a picture of what it is. It's a one-story office building from the 40s, if not older. It was Clark Oil headquarters. It looks like the offices in there look like an episode of Mad Men. Really, wood paneling, outdated, 20% occupied of a building, very poor occupancy. Had an assessment of maybe $1 million. So to go from $1 million on 3 acres to 48 million here in time is a great advantage here for our city.
Talk a little bit about comprehensive planning, and this is a view from the Sona Lofts, looking to the north towards the west, and I think it's just sort of fitting view of when you think about what this area was prior to all this redevelopment happening. I mean, we had strip clubs, we had floppy bars, we had dive bars and junkyard. I think this window would have looked out over salvage heaven or something like that. I mean, along National Avenue. So we've come a long way. As Patrick mentioned, TIF, comprehensive planning in this case, has been identified this area as a special interest area. And Carolyn was instrumental in part of that process years past in helping us sort of vision for the future back in the 2010 when we adopted our 2030 plan. So we're on to the next phase of planning horizon, and we're looking ahead again over the next 20 or so years, and we're really looking and engaging more of our public in this round. And hats off to our lead planner, Zach Roeder, and Jack Kovneski, who've really been leading the way on getting out there, the different events, our farmers markets, our food truck Fridays, the different National Night Out events, concert series in the parks, and really just sort of getting people what's on their mind, what they like about West Allis, what they maybe dislike, and what are the opportunities for the future. And some of the things that have been identified, I mean, this is sort of from our strategic vision, but I think it sort of captures the essence of what they've been learning in their comprehensive engagement here, is that some of our strengths are that we have a younger population and a diverse population. There's primarily owner-occupied properties. We have affordable home values, and a large portion of the population is savvy with the internet. We've got decreasing crime rates, and however, some of the challenges looking ahead is that we have higher poverty rates than other peer cities and lower incomes as well. So, with that, I mean, older housing stocks and so on, those are somewhat of barriers, but we're looking at those as also opportunities to improve. And our planning team has been out doing not only surveys. In this case, we've done 4 online surveys in 2 different languages. We've got about almost a 500 survey response rate. And that's just surveys. I mean, surveys are one thing, but I think going a step further, it's much more important, I think, as part of comprehensive planning, economic development, whatever you're doing on a municipal level. I think it's just important to sort of engage the people. So if there's a festival going on, or a parade, or an event in downtown, your downtown or local community, I think it's really important to get out there, put the tent up, put the table down, and maybe ask some questions, engage the people and find out find out what triggers them, what they like, what they dislike, what are the opportunities. And some of the things on the right here are the 5 sort of themes that we've learned. Safer streets for all is really key. Walking and biking, vibrant public spaces, new housing that's affordable and quality, and offer some choices, not just single family homes or not just apartments, but a nice blend of everything. They want to grow West Allis, so that just, to me, that means redevelopment. We really don't have open space to develop. We're looking at the opportunities that are already out there, and how do we redevelop those. So this is our first draft at our future land use map. I will say that we're taking a much closer look at I guess redevelopment and promoting more active use spaces. Those are kind of our bread and butter, but I mean, we're also taking a look more so at how do we get more density in terms of housing, because the density, taking a look at some of those larger vast areas, especially along the Highway 100 corridor, I think is a definite opportunity for the future. Just vast landscapes of parking lots and land that could be developed and translate to taxable value and interesting spaces for new neighborhoods.
This is an area that in our comp plan, that in our planning, that we're looking at this 8 acres of 1-story strip mall, older industrial buildings that are underperforming. 8 acres of land here with a very low value. This is actually a towing business next to our fairly new skate park. And we've kind of looked at this area and gone, how can we rethink this area? And we engaged a consultant to kind of come up with a vision. This is just a quick, massing on the site and trying to think broader. Element 84 is just to the north. It's on public transportation on two roads, National Avenue and 84th Street. And we're seeing 3-leaf development is just to the west, Element 84 is to the north. How we can expand then on the principles of our National Avenue corridor study by creating a little bit more of a new development and advancing the area. And then actually the skate park becomes more of an amenity with the new development.
This is just a quick slide on the power line trail on Greenfield, Milwaukee, St. Francis are sort of been working together. Greenfield actually implemented, I think, over 2 miles of the path under the We Energies easement, which ultimately, if you look at the bigger picture, it does connect Milwaukee, St. Francis down to the lakefront. West Allis, we're definitely planning on possible connection to that power line trail, which would bend north up along Highway 94, and then ultimately connect our crosstown connector trail, and then the Hank Aaron State Trail to the north of that. So we want to become more bike friendly, as I said before, and our planning team is also, as part of our engagement and comp planning engagement, they've taken the opportunities to do these small little bike rides or community bike rides with the mayor, alderpersons, and other interested people. It's really a slow roll, no drop ride. But the last one we did was out of Oak Brewing. We started and finished at Oak Brewing, and if people want to hang around afterward to socialize, that's an opportunity. But it's really about just getting together and learning more from people and doing something fun along the way. So our new school superintendent actually came along too for the ride, which was nice to see. Many municipalities, I guess, throughout the Milwaukee County area are have this opportunity here, but West Allis is definitely going to be hopefully taking advantage of this. And Milwaukee County was awarded almost $1 million from the US DOT, and they're also going to be taking a portion of that money and then dividing it up amongst the 19 different municipalities if they apply. But basically, it'll help us plan a little better, take a closer look at some of our intersections identified here on the right, some of where we have a higher propensity of crashes, injuries, and what can we do to study do a better job of looking at those areas and studying how they're functioning and how we can improve upon those. And it'll open up the opportunity for other grants along the way as well. So I just want to also hit on our zoning code. We did update that, complete overhaul of it actually at staff level here, basically last year. And 3 main objectives were basically just make it easier to use and read. We wanted to increase taxable value through, again, more density and best practices. And also we wanted to fit our neighborhoods, our business corridors, and the West Allis, not only for today, but the future. And so one of the first simplest things we did is sort of consolidate the number of zones. We had a number of residential zoning districts prior, just one example in the residential category, simplifying that down to, 5 instead of, this number over here down to 5 districts. And then instead of the 3 different types of PUD districts, 1. And then on the next slide, this is the zoning map, and basically just taking a look at, I think you hit the next slide, Patrick. Some of the key changes I think we just want to talk about is that historically we had, several different zoning or residential zoning districts. Most of those only allowed single family homes, and consolidating that and then changing some of the usage, the use allowances. We really did open up a lot more opportunity for a little bit more density in those historically single family neighborhoods. It allows, property owners to make, if they wanted to build a duplex or convert a home to a duplex, it opens up that opportunity for the market. Also with restaurants, just in terms of making it easier to get into business and faster to get into business, I should say. Restaurants were always a conditional use. So meaning, plan commission, public hearing, and then, sort of a lengthy amount of time just to get into business. With smaller restaurants, 2,000 square feet or lower, we've made those just permitted uses, as long as they can sort of fit within the basic parameters of, some of the criteria, the conditional use criteria, which is sort of framed around hours of operation. Otherwise, another opportunity here to take a look at, we had a number of tobacco and vape types of shops opening up all over the city, and there's the likelihood of more. We took a look at, obviously there's health and safety risks, and also some of the optics of, these places opening up all over the place. People question that. I think there should be another graphic that pops up on the right, Patrick. So what we did is we changed our ordinance basically to, if you're permitted if you have less than 10% of the floor area, the gross floor area of your retail sale area. If less than that is devoted to nicotine sales, you're permitted use. If it's more than that, it's just flat out not permitted. That's an ordinance that's coming before our council in the coming weeks. Modernizing our parking regulations. We went from a minimum-based parking requirements to maximum, and I think it's really, for a fully developed city, I think it was fairly easy for us to implement, but I'd also encourage other municipalities to sort of take a look at that and do something similar. The picture on the bottom was one of our aging shopping malls, and it's just like you see that too often, especially along our Highway 100 corridor. Getting away from that and encouraging more of what you see on the top, just sort of more about the built environment versus parking. So that's what that hopefully achieves. We talked a lot about the east side of the city, and the west side is sort of the new frontier. Again, that Highway 100 corridor is something that just based on the land use decisions of the past sort of influenced the future in this case, and how do we undo some of that? There's one opportunity. I mean, our school district is looking at selling or changing up how they use some of their existing facilities. This one on Highway 100 in Greenfield Avenue is the former Lane Middle School, and the school district is taking a look at keeping the existing gym, but in tearing down the rest of the building. There are several additions built on over the years, but keeping the newest part of that, which has a gymnasium and the second floor, and then repurposing that again, just sort of keeping the gym, but then adding a couple additions for pools and other rec activities. And then they would actually have another acre of land on the very south end of the property for redevelopment. If we take a step back and take a bigger picture view of this area, maybe the next one, Patrick. I think we've got a slide here from our Highway 100 corridor plan, which taking a look at that special interest area, Highway 100 in Greenfield was identified in our Highway 100 corridor plan as being an intersection of importance where we could maybe see some new growth. And as part of a rezoning effort to rezone the school property from residential to commercial, we hope to sort of invigorate this area. And then maybe we see some additional assemblage of properties from that acre of land that the school district will redevelop, maybe taking a look at the other properties to the south, which include some single family homes and a strip mall. And then there's 17 acres south of that. Perhaps realize something as you see the vision you see on the left, which is more mixed use, residential and apartments above, just increasing the density and the quality of development in this area. change from what we've sort of been used to in driving by.
As we talked about before, we have a legacy of being industrial, but that's evolved in time. This is a project area called Allis Yards, and the change in the economy has definitely impacted the ability to redevelop this area. Summit Place was our largest taxpayer with 650,000 square feet of office. The town center is an older industrial shopping center to the south, and we are working with the developer now for a new vision for this area. It was supposed to be 300 in the blue square, 350,000 square feet of office, and we all know where the office market is today, and it's definitely a change. So we have interest from a developer to actually put in 246 new housing units with a second phase of another 132. And this is actually coming up the Plan Commission this month. This is a big change, but it's also a sizable, probably another $70 to $80 million development within this area. You can kind of see some of the vision of the architecture and the quality there. We've worked with the developer to bring in different amenities, golf simulators, things like that. Things that I don't know about, that I never had in my apartment when I lived in an apartment. But today, these things are almost like a quality hotel in a way in terms of the construction.
The last slide here. Hey, we made it to the last slide. We're going to be featured. West Allis will be featured in Discover Wisconsin later this fall. So if you follow that, or even if you don't, I guess tune in. You can learn about their take on West Allis. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you both. This is so exciting. And personally, as you mentioned, I was involved in some of the early planning at 6 Points and the comprehensive plan, others. It's really great to see how you've held steadfast to those visions that came from the community. And you're seeing so much benefit as you're transforming, and you're figuring out how to do it through partnerships is what I'm also hearing is the key. So we do have a couple questions. And one of them was, there are a lot of cities looking at integrating that missing middle, like the duplexes and quads, and changing the zoning. What was the reaction to the residents in the neighborhood where you were introducing to allow duplexes?
I honestly don't think we really had much pushback at all. I mean, and I think that's just because West Allis is, we've kind of the neighborhoods we have. I mean, there's sort of the eastern portion of West Allis, which is very dense, and as you move further west, maybe south or west of 92nd Street, it becomes a little bit more sprawling and larger ranches and so on. But I mean, there really hasn't, or as part of the zoning ordinance change, there really wasn't any pushback at all for, we consolidated the zoning districts to reduce the number, but then we also added duplexes as an opportunity that could be developed in, and I think it's our RA3 zone. So okay. It's really not, it didn't play into any pushback whatsoever. I think, again, just being fully developed city has sort of helped that, and the fact that we are diversifying in terms of our demographics.
It's considered part of, I think, the affordable discussion as well. So it'd be really interesting to check back with you in 5 years and see how many were converted or built new. So Meg has a question asking if you'll continue any more of your Native American planning or initiatives.
Excuse me?
I missed the question.
Meg, we have a question. Any plans for further Native American community projects? I don't know. Have you done some that Meg is referring to?
I'm not aware of any, no.
Okay.
Like
well, I know we're doing
that.
some of that with some of the local schools in Milwaukee, so maybe that's an opportunity to engage with some of the schools, or I'll let Meg clarify in a follow-up. And then we do have a question on how are you enforcing the floor area limit as part of your regulations?
Oh, yeah, with the tobacco nicotine thing. Yeah, so with that, it's we typically ask for a floor plan. So if somebody comes in to apply for a business occupancy, I want to start a retail store, and the questions asked, what are you selling? And if nicotine products are part of that equation, then we want to at least quantify, show us the portion of your floor plan where you're going to sell this stuff. So could they change their floor plan over the years? And sure, they could, but I mean, it's just a matter of enforcement, being observing, being connected with your neighborhood, and just observing, changes as they happen. And, that becomes an enforcement measure if they start to creep up over that.
There's a general question. I'm going to generalize this one a little bit. Question about shifting your parking standards and any concern from residents, probably more from business owners. And in general, when you're making these changes to your zoning code and some of your regulations, what kind of education are you bringing in to help people understand, here's the proposed change, potential benefits, so that, there's always the fear of change, right? Until people understand, oh, it's actually going to help me, or it's not as extreme as I'm fearing.
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about taxes. I mean, it's, why taxes keep going up, or the, why are taxes so high, or we need to, so it's like, well, if you look at Highway 100, for example, pick any shopping center along Highway 100 in West Allis. I mean, you've got parking lots where people actually use that portion of the parking lot, and it's really easy to look at on Google or, aerial photography. Here's where everybody typically parks, and all this extra space out here is just unused pretty much year round. So it's like, it was kind of like that view, the visualization of that actual occurrence, that helped, I think, sell majority of our council members. And we also, I want to actually thank our council members too. We have a number, at least a couple, that were very supportive of, had heard of maximum parking requirements before, sort of following APA, and were very supportive of the notion. Again, as a sort of redeveloping city, we don't have all this land to keep developing. So we've got to really sort of grow from within and rethink how we've developed things over the past. And
Caroline, I'd like to add that, I'm looking out from the economic perspective. We often hear from real estate brokers, oh, they need all this parking, etc. And I think that tone has changed a lot from the real estate community. But in working with our planning team, they did a great job in educating the elected officials as well. Creating materials that are easy to understand and making sure that it's not, that's overly complicated, so that we could get these things through the process of change and getting the votes that necessary to support it. Steve's team, I think, had just meetings to discuss the zoning code and went through line by line all the changes. I think you had 2 of those meetings, and provided packets to the alders that were very informative.
I think the educational side is key, and you're benefiting from that. I want to say, before people start jumping off, Blythe, our project assistant for the year with the department, is going to put a survey into the chat. We just ask you to please fill that out. Tell us what you thought about this great presentation, but even more important is identify maybe new topics or speakers that you would suggest for us to consider as we are planning for the spring. What my big takeaway here is not just also the educational side, but you talked a lot about partnerships and going from that small idea to big impact, right? So I think that's where your strength is as a community. But can you just touch on, obviously that's an opportunity, but are there any challenges you see in the amount of partnerships or funding that you have to pull together to make some of the projects a success?
I would say, yeah, whether it's from a park renovation, you see I had a picture of a fitness court before that was a partnership with a grant through Aurora. Partnerships like that help. We're landlocked, we're fiscally constrained in terms of expenditures, and that's why we look for partnerships where we can. And whether it's like the skate park had a grant from the Windover Foundation at Quad to help put that in. It just takes multiple partnerships and creative programs to help bridge those gaps. Construction costs aren't getting any cheaper. I had a park pavilion estimate of $1.5 million just to do a little park pavilion, and that's a lot of money, and in terms of investing into a park, but it's needed, and we'll have to figure out how to get there. So that, I don't know if that answers your question, Steve. You want to add anything?
I was gonna say, sort of building on that, that's usually more than one source of funding, right? So there's different, like the park pavilion example. We're looking at using some CDBG money, and we're also looking to do some fundraising. We're getting our school district involved. Maybe they can pick up a portion of it. So it's like, it's not any one source of funding that's going to build this thing. It's going to take a team.
Right.
Right.
And I think you're proving that in both your small scale and your large projects. So again, big thanks out to Steve Scher and Patrick Schloss for sharing your story and the path to bringing all these successful projects. And I think everybody online now has a few new bakeries and breweries we can stop in West Allis on our next stop. So again, thanks to everybody for spending your time with us. Reminder, our next one is October 4th, how to utilize data to implement your projects. Thank you.